Now, for the last 7 years or so, Kathleen Kennedy's employment status with Lucasfilm has been one of the most talked about topics in the Star Wars fandom, mainly by those who'd like to see her gone from the company. And over that time, there have been, shall we say, lots and lots of reports and rumors and insider leaks that have said she's going to be leaving soon or going to be fired soon. And of course, she's still there despite all of them. And despite the franchise not being as successful as many would argue it could be and should be. And so you'd really think bringing up yet another report or rumor about her departure would be kind of foolish at this point. Why would this one be legitimate or accurate if so many before have been dead wrong, or maybe just complete made-up BS in the first place in order to get some clicks and views on a video or an article? And well, that's a fair question, and the only reason I'm going to talk about this one is because, even if it is not true, which there's every chance it isn't, I think it still makes sense and sort of even aligns with what Lucasfilm's current plans are. Because you see, this time the report is that Kathleen Kennedy, who is now 71 years old, is indeed ready to retire, but that she wants to go out on a big win. Which, yeah, kind of makes sense, right? I don't think anyone ever wants to go out with a whimper or wants to go out having left the company they've worked for, or should I say ran, for over a decade, leaving it in ruin or far, far worse than when they took it over. Not to mention, as I have talked about many times before, but this will be her legacy. Her time at Lucasfilm with the Star Wars franchise will forever be Kathleen Kennedy's legacy. This will be what everyone remembers her for, good or bad, better or worse. And yes, I know, as those who like to defend Kennedy will always bring up, she has been a part of some of the biggest films in history. I'm not trying to take any previous accomplishments away from her, or say the only thing she's ever done is screw up Lucasfilm. But her time there as president, as the woman who literally took over Star Wars from George Lucas, who had the biggest, most popular, and beloved franchise, arguably in history, handed to her, a money printing press of a franchise, really, how she has handled it will be the first thing, and oftentimes the last thing, anyone who ever says or talks about her ever again will talk about. And you better believe she knows that. Even if Disney and Lucasfilm never acknowledge the very obvious downward trend Star Wars has been on, that doesn't mean that they, and she in particular, doesn't know that. She absolutely understands that her handling of Lucasfilm will forever be what she is remembered for. And though I know there are those out there who really do want to defend Kennedy and her time at Lucasfilm and say she's done a great job, but objectively, all you really need to start to do to see the fall of Star Wars is to look at the latest Nielsen streaming ratings, for example, for the week of July 8th to the 14th, which is the week of the 7th episode of The Acolyte. And you will see that, or maybe I should say you won't see The Acolyte on it because it can't crack the top 10? Which sounds absolutely crazy. Can you imagine, say, going back 10 years and telling people of that time who were pumped for The Force Awakens that, in a decade, no one's going to even watch a new show anymore? But anyway, it's even worse than that, because it hasn't cracked the top 10 since its first week, its 2-episode premiere. And this week it even got beat out by Stranger Things, a show that, yes, is very popular, don't get me wrong, but a show that hasn't put out a new episode in almost 2 years. Meaning your average person much rather go back and watch something they've likely seen before in preparation for the upcoming final season, rather than watch some brand new Star Wars. Basically, Kathleen Kennedy has taken Star Wars from a franchise everyone had to see and used to talk about and be excited about for whatever might be next, to one that, relatively speaking, very few really care that much about at all. At least when it comes to the new stuff. Certainly the old stuff will always have its fans who love it, but she's taken it from something where a brand new series can barely drum up any real interest, and performs so poorly that instead of knowing The Acolyte will get a second season, because of course it will, of course it ended up being a smash hit because it's Star Wars we're talking about here, the few fans it did have instead have to take to X to beg for a second season because deep down, even if they loved it, which is absolutely fine if they did, And even if they ignore the Nielsen ratings or anything and everything else that has kind of been around the show, like the fact that it has been very negatively received by a big portion of the fan base, they know this show wasn't it. It wasn't something that got anyone outside of them, really. Those core fans who love anything and everything Star Wars and maybe sort of feel obligated to always defend it no matter what. It didn't get anyone excited for Star Wars. These Nielsen ratings kind of prove that, I think. And it got really nobody excited for a second season of this or for anything else that's really upcoming, I would argue. Short of those, of course, looking forward to Andor Season 2. And so, of course, Kennedy doesn't want this to be her legacy. Of course she doesn't want to go down in history as the woman who killed Star Wars. As the one who steered this unsinkable franchise right into the iceberg and sank it. And maybe the funny part about all of this is, if Star Wars was in a great place right now, if the sequels had been smash hits and loved by most fans, and if all or most, at least, of the Disney Plus shows had been really good, there's a high chance she'd already be gone, actually, and that we would have even been sad to see her go because of the great job she had done. This has never been anything personal against Kennedy, despite those who think this has always been about her being a woman. It's just that she hasn't done a very good job. Furthermore here, I do think, and I said this long before this new rumor came out about her wanting to go out on a win, but I do think the Rey movie is her great hope for that. It's her great hope to save her legacy, which I know sounds a little crazy because that's likely not going to get a very warm reception from those who didn't like the sequels, go figure. But I do think she wants or needs for herself that film, the Rey film, to be loved and to somehow have it reinvigorate not only the franchise, but cast a new sort of light on the sequels. Because nothing is or ever will be more associated with her legacy than those films, and there's likely nothing she'd like more than to, in a sense, kind of salvage them or have people maybe look at them differently. I'm going to assume she hopes that what some believe happened to the prequels, that there has been this kind of change of heart towards them, is going to happen towards the sequels, and that the Rey movie will be the start of that. So yeah, again, I don't know if this is the most credible rumor or not, but it does make sense. It holds up logically, shall we say, that I don't know if it even matters then if it's a legit rumor or not, because it's probably true regardless. Especially when you look at the evidence, which is the upcoming Rey movie, a film that just seems like a really bad bet or risk to take considering the reception the sequels got, how interest in them declined as they went on, and how revenue got cut in half from the first movie to the last movie in the trilogy. It really feels like it's coming from someone desperate to salvage the sequel trilogy era, or the post-sequel era at least. But I really think, well, for one, many out there won't give any Star Wars a chance till Kennedy is gone. But I really think it would need to be something truly special, an absolutely incredible film to convince those who really didn't like the sequels, who cite that as perhaps the reason they're kind of done being fans right now, again, of the current stuff. It would need to be that damn good to have any hope of getting them back on board with Star Wars. And to be honest, and mind you, I'm someone who, as I always say, I do always root for Star Wars. I'm someone who hopes somehow, some way, the Rey movie is indeed good, and not just because it'd give Kennedy her win and her reason to leave, but as someone who just always wants Star Wars to be as good as possible, who does try to be optimistic despite what some think of me, I'm not sure that's even possible in this case with this movie. I'm also not sure they've hired the right director for the job either. I mean, they've hired someone with virtually zero experience with this sort of thing, and seems like they're maybe more interested in being an activist or pushing an agenda than anything else. Which is kinda or partly how we got to this position with the franchise in the first place. Lucasfilm under Kennedy just doesn't know how or care to just put Star Wars first and to make the best films and shows possible. And what Kennedy doesn't realize, or maybe she does and just doesn't want to admit it to herself, but what she doesn't realize is if she really and truly wanted a big win for Star Wars, she should just retire and leave Lucasfilm. That is the win that most fans are looking for. And I know you, Kennedy, can care about your precious legacy, but let's be real about it. Even if the Rey movie is somehow fantastic, a masterpiece, even if it truly is a win and fans who didn't like the sequels find enjoyment in it and say, hey, I'm willing to give Star Wars another chance, it's not like everyone just forgets about the past 10 years. Like it or not, Kennedy, but that is what you are always going to be remembered for, as the woman who took Star Wars and all but destroyed it. Well, that's all I got for you this time. Now it is your turn to take to the comments below and tell me what you think about all of this. Do you believe the rumor to be true? And even if you don't, do you think it's possible that it still is the case? That Kennedy is concerned about her legacy and is so desperate to fix it that she keeps hanging around looking for a big win and making things worse in the process. Whatever you think though, leave a comment below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.